heated discussion, I think you used the term, but I call it kind of positive debate about the merits of a particular matter. And sometimes people do not understand how I've gone into that discussion with you, one view, and come out and then advocate another. And why have I changed my mind? I said, well, no, we actually had a discussion about, well, that's my view of it, that's your view of it. This is a politically led organisation, that's what it wants to be like. If it's still legal for you to do something within your resources to do it, whether I think it's the wisest thing to do, don't think it's my call. I think it's ultimately your call. But we've been able to have that discussion. Yes,
and I think that's also probably touches on how I work with everything, in that I like to get lots of opinions, but ultimately I make the decision with things. But I like to hear all the views.
It's probably easier with you than say your deputy. Sometimes that's more. Sometimes.
I think I better have a sip of water at that point.
But that can sometimes be an interesting challenge for both of us, which is, when you think of that, actually sometimes that debate, the irony that people don't see of our relationship, is where sometimes it's actually we've taken a view and somebody else is still advocating another.
Yes.
And sometimes you're actually adjudicating the views. I might be having quite an interesting debate with another member of your group. And I find that fine. I don't actually feel uncomfortable about it. I don't feel difficult about it. And then I don't feel difficult about going and then explain to people, well, this is what we're going to do now, even though I might have come into the meeting with a view of something different. But I do get a reaction from the administration about why aren't they doing what we're telling them? You know, why aren't the politicians doing what we're telling them? And I say, well, hold on a second. The council wants to have a politically led organisation, not necessarily for us just to tell them what's good for them and what they should do.
Yes, and I think also that ties in very much with my view, and well, you know, when we've discussed other organisations, the thought that the role of officers is just to say, do this, or even we've done this, here it is, would not sit very easily.
But that's not the style the council said it wanted.
No, exactly. But it's not the style that I personally would be at all comfortable with and wouldn't actually be able to work with. I don't like that sort of secrecy and the feeling that things are just happening and I'm just somebody to sign things occasionally. And I think that probably goes back to what we talked about with the first question, in a sense that probably as an administration we have tended to be a lot more hands-on, probably to the point of irritation.
There are occasions when you could temper it a little, but I think that's fine. We can people will live with that.
But we're learning as well, I think, and how far that needs to go and what's appropriate.
We see when you're experimenting with something, you don't actually know where the boundary is until you've knocked it. So I think that's fine. What for me is in that just backlash for me is I am by nature, as before this appointment was perceived as being more political than the normal local authority officer, and that's actually kind of been exacerbated.
Yes.
And the strange thing for me is that if you take, depending on how far away from me somebody is, if the further they are away, when they meet me first time about how that discussion's going, if I haven't said who I am and exactly what my role is, they're not sure whether I'm actually a paid official or a politician. And that's been a fascinating kind of...
Well, I think that's only because you're more overtly like that. Actually, when I think, talking to chief executives that I know now, they're all extremely politically astute. And I don't see how they could fail to be other than that in order to function properly.
But people have got this kind of, what I would call the dinosaur regime of officers are in this box and members in that box. And the reality is that the leadership is in this trading zone. I won't call it grey zone, I'll call it trading zone, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're trading off what's possible administratively, what's desired politically, and how we're going to get a balance where we're both going to survive.
That's right. And
sorry to describe it that way. But
selling it back down the line both ways as well.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we've done, in terms of,
I got to put my
perceiving
glasses on to read whatever else Simon
No, I'm
wanted us to
still
do.
on 3.
Oh, you're
Whether
right.
others perceive our relationship.